just sit quietly. So these are to help the good state of mind for the start of the class. So we'll just do the first, the two prayers on page 1, refuge and bodhicitta, and then the 4 measurable thoughts. So the first prayer, refuge and bodhicitta, we'll do it one time in English, one time in Tibetan, and then one time in English. Held up by the rain, maybe. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki drola penshir sangye druparsho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Then the next prayer is the prayer of the 4 immeasurable thoughts, which is actually the subject that we are studying in this class. So we'll read that prayer one time, but just pause for a little while after each line so that we can contemplate the meaning of that line and try to generate that particular state of mind. Hi. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And next line. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. The next one. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. Last. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. So, some of you are here for the first time.
I have been here before, but it's been a long time ago.
Okay, but you haven't been coming to this class.
Not so much.
No. Oops. Okay. So just to briefly explain what we've been doing, we started this class in September, and the subject that we've been going through is called the Four Immeasurable Thoughts, which that prayer was about. So these are four positive states of mind that are very important in Buddhism for those who want to be a Buddhist and follow the Buddhist path. But they're also universal attitudes, universal positive qualities that I think everybody can appreciate how important they are. So the first is love or loving kindness, which is the attitude of caring about others, wishing them to be happy, wishing to do whatever you can to bring about their happiness. And the second is compassion, which is a little bit different. It's wishing others to be free of suffering. So it's understanding that nobody likes pain, nobody likes problems, nobody likes unhappiness, and they all want to be free from such experiences. So you feel that, you empathize with that, you wish that they could be free of suffering, and whenever you have a chance to help bring that about, you do so. You do what you can to help others be free of suffering. Then the third of the four attitudes is immeasurable joy, or it's also called rejoicing. And this is what we started talking about last week. Joy means sharing in the happiness of others. So when another person is happy or another person is having some good experience, like they've just met some wonderful new person, new friend, new boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, or they've just won a prize, or they did well in an exam, or they got a job, or whatever, some wonderful thing happens to them and they're happy. And then you share in that. You feel happy for them. You feel happy for their happiness. And it's the opposite of jealousy or envy, which is when instead of feeling happy for somebody else's good fortune, we feel unhappy. We feel, oh, I don't want them to have that. And so rejoicing, then, it's a very positive state of mind. It's a very joyful state of mind. It's a good state of mind. And then another term that's sometimes used in the Buddhist path, the Buddhist teachings, is rejoicing. And rejoicing is a little more specific. It's when somebody is doing something good, like they're doing meditation, or they're helping, giving money to charity, they're doing something good, something positive, and you feel, oh, that's great, I'm really happy what they're doing, because that's a good thing to do. It's benefiting others, it's also benefiting themselves. So that's the meaning of rejoicing. Rejoicing, we can also do it for our own good actions. When we do something good, we can also feel joyful about that. It's not the same as pride. It may sound like that. It may sound like, wow, I'm so great, look what I did. It's not that. Okay. It's not pride. Pride, that's another state of mind. It's one of the disturbing mental states that Buddhism says we should try to work on, get rid of. Pride is usually when we compare ourselves with somebody else and we feel better than them, or better than others, So it's like, well, I'm this great meditator and I'm better than everybody else. And then you look down on other people thinking they're not as good as you. So pride usually involves a comparison, comparing oneself with others and feeling superior to them. Whereas rejoicing in the good things that we do isn't like that. It's just recognizing that, okay, I just did a meditation, or I just helped somebody out, and that was a really good thing to do. It was good for them, but it's also good for me. It's a good thing to do. So we feel happy about that. We've kind of like patting ourselves on the back. Yeah. So we're not comparing ourselves with others, or we shouldn't be anyway. thinking I'm better than everybody else, but we're just looking at something we ourselves did and thinking that was a good thing to do. And it's good to do that, because then it's like giving ourselves encouragement. Thing to do, and I want to do more of that. Yeah. So I think that's important to do, because otherwise, if we just do something good and then don't feel happy about it, we may not feel enthusiastic or inspired to do more of the same kind of thing in the future. So anyway, these practices, joy, feeling joyful and rejoicing, in the traditional Buddhist path, they're practices. We are encouraged to do these practices because by doing these practices, we accumulate positive energy, or we could say good karma. And that means we're creating the cause to have good experiences in the future. And also they help us to develop our mind towards enlightenment. They help us get closer to enlightenment, if that's what you want to do. They're also, like I said before, remedy. It's good to do these practices as a kind of remedy to jealousy or envy. Those are states of mind that are really painful. It's really painful to feel jealous, to feel envious. It's not a nice state of mind. It's a kind of unpleasant state of mind. And also, if we get into that state of mind, if we get into feeling jealousy and envy, it can lead us to behave in ways that are not very nice. We can say nasty things or do nasty things to other people. So that hurts others, but also hurts ourselves, because we're creating negative karma that will bring about problems in the future. So by getting caught up in jealousy and envy, I mean, it's natural those states of mind will arise. Everybody feels that way sometimes. So we will feel that way sometimes, but it's just a question of, well, what do we do with that? Do we let ourselves get caught up in it and act it out and, indulge in it? Or do we try to change that state of mind into something more positive, which we can? So I talked about that last week. What are some things we can do to change our mind so that instead of feeling jealous, envious, we can feel more joyful, more happy, more positive? But even outside of the Buddhist path, I think these practices, or these states of mind of joy and rejoicing, are just wonderful things to do. They bring more happiness right here and now. So even for someone who's not interested in following the spiritual path, but just wants to be more happy, then these are things we can do to be more happy. And there seems to be scientific evidence that supports this, because I mentioned in this book called Buddha's Brain, which I like very much. It's my source of information about the brain. It's written in a very simple way that I can understand, but it also connects neuroscience with meditation and the Buddhist path. So I mentioned last week that in that book, Buddha's Brain, it talks about this practice of paying attention to good things in our life. Because our brain tends to have this negative bias. The way that the brain works, we tend to pay more attention to negative things, bad things, problems, faults, negative things. And we don't pay so much attention to positive things. And so that's one reason why people tend to get stressed and unhappy and depressed and so forth. It's just the way the brain works. But we can change it. So one way of changing it is to deliberately, consciously make an effort to focus more on good things. So there's lots of good things that happen every day of our life, things that we see, things that other people do, things that we ourselves do. So when we do encounter some good thing, some positive thing, what this book says is it's good to really pay attention to that. Don't just ignore it. Pay attention to it and let yourself feel good. Let yourself feel happy about it. and stay with that experience for a little while, at least 5 seconds. The more the better, but at least, 5 seconds. Let yourself really experience the happiness of this positive thing. And this is a way to change the way that the brain works, away from the negative, focusing on the negative things, and mm, make it so that it focuses more on positive things. So it brings more happiness into our life, and that can also help us to be healthier, to have a longer life, and so forth. So last Tuesday I spoke about this practice of rejoicing, but we didn't have time to meditate on it. So I thought that tonight, at the start of this class, we could do a little bit of meditation on rejoicing, so that you know how to do it. So, in case any of you are not familiar with this type of meditation, it's a kind of meditation we usually call analytical meditation. That means thinking, using thought, using the ability of the mind to think about things, but using that in a positive way, so that we think about positive things, and that will help our mind to be more positive, to experience more positive things. So I'll be talking during the meditation and just asking you to bring to mind certain things and think about certain things. So just try the best you can to stay focused on what I am saying, and try to follow what I'm saying. And you might notice your mind wandering away. Uh, Other thoughts might come up. You might remember something that happened during the day that's not related to the meditation that we're doing. Or you might think about a phone call that you need to make later, or an email you need to send, or something else you need to do. So if thoughts like that come up in your mind, it's normal. It's just normal that our mind has these thoughts coming up. So don't worry, don't be upset, but just try your best to not follow the thought, not get carried away with that thought, and instead to bring your mind back to right here, right now, where we are, what we're doing, this meditation. So come back to the meditation whenever your mind wanders away. So start by sitting in a comfortable position. It's good if you can keep your back straight. So whether you're sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair, try to sit with the back straight. But at the same time, let your body relax. So let your shoulders relax, let your arms relax, let your back relax. Let your chest and abdomen relax. Let your legs relax. If you notice any tension in your body, see if you can imagine that it melts and flows away. You can imagine it flowing out of your body, draining out of your body, flowing down and sinking into the earth beneath us. And there it disappears. And let your breathing be natural. Just let the breath flow in and out in a natural way, a natural rhythm. And actually being aware of the breath, focusing on the breath, is a way to settle down the body and the mind in the present rather than rather than the mind being busy and traveling away from this place and this moment, thinking about the past and the future and other things. So coming back to the breath again and again helps us to stay in the present, because the breath is happening in the present. It's right here, right now. So let's start by thinking about things that we ourselves have done that are positive. So you could think about today. Were there any positive things that you did today? Things like helping other people, or just having positive thoughts, loving, caring thoughts towards others. Or maybe you did some practice, some meditation or other kinds of spiritual practice. Or even just to live our life in a non-harmful way, not harming others and helping them instead. Even that itself is a positive thing. So you can think about today, and you can also go further back in time, yesterday, over the last week, over the last month, year, and so forth. So just let your mind travel back in time and think about positive things, helpful things, good things that you have done. And each time you think of a positive thing, feel a sense of rejoicing. Feel, oh, that was a good thing to do. So just stay with that experience for a few moments and think, I'm glad I did that. That was a good thing to do. I rejoice in what I've done. And now let's think about positive things others have done. So it's probably easiest to start with people who are helping others. So there may be people you yourself know who are working in some kind of helping profession, like doctors, nurses, therapists, helping people suffering from mental problems or physical problems. And even if you yourself don't know such people, you can just think about all the people here in Denmark and in other places in the world who are doing that kind of work, who are helping others who are sick, helping others who are old, who are dying, helping those who are homeless, who are hungry, who are poor, and also just the ordinary things that people do, like parents taking care of their children, teachers teaching children, and grown up people taking care of their parents, their elderly parents. So just spend some time thinking about that, thinking about all the different people who every single day are helping other people, doing good for other people, helping other people to feel better, to be healthier, to be more happy, and so on. So as you think of these things, feel a sense of joy, rejoicing. Feel how wonderful it is that they are doing that. And now let's think about people who are following a spiritual path. There are many people who dedicate themselves to a life of contemplation, of prayer, of study, learning about the spiritual path, meditating on it, so that they can make their minds thoroughly familiar with it and actually change their minds, transform their minds through spiritual teachings, which means learning to be more loving and compassionate and wise, and learning to have less anger and attachment and jealousy, pride, and ignorance, and so forth. So there are people who are really working very hard to follow a spiritual path. Some of them may be ordained people, monks, nuns, priests, and so on. Some are not ordained, they're lay people, but they're still seriously studying and practicing a spiritual path. Even if they have to work, even if they have families, kids, and so on, but still they find time each day to do some study and practice. So they try to live their lives according to the spiritual teachings that they believe in. So this is a very important aspect of life in the world, that there are such people sincerely learning and practicing a spiritual path. So think about such people and feel a sense of joy, rejoicing in what they're doing, because it benefits themselves, it benefits others, it benefits the world, brings more positive energy, more peace and love and kindness and compassion into the world. And then Buddhism speaks about beings who have attained enlightenment. So they have totally transformed their minds, their hearts. They have freed their minds from all that is negative, like anger, jealousy, attachment, ignorance, and have developed the positive qualities of the mind to the fullest extent. So they have perfect, unconditional, universal love, compassion, and also wisdom that sees the true nature of things and so on. So their minds have reached a state of perfection, state of enlightenment. And they are existing in the world, in the universe, and they are totally dedicated to helping all other beings to help them transform themselves so that they too can become free of all that is negative and achieve all that is positive and become free of suffering and achieve happiness. So there are such beings, enlightened beings, usually called Buddhas. And then there are also bodhisattvas, those who are not yet enlightened, but almost there. They're working really, really hard to finish the work they need to do on their minds and bring their minds to enlightenment. So these Buddhas and bodhisattvas are working constantly, every minute, every second, to help us and to help all other living beings. And if it may be hard to really believe this, you may wonder, well, who are they? Where are they? But to a certain extent, we just need to take it on faith that such beings do exist in the world. Or you might think of teachers you have met, such as the Dalai Lama, um, who are good examples of this kind of person, this kind of way of life, way of living. So there are actually many such beings, even if we haven't met them, and they're doing a lot of good, a lot of wonderful good work for the world, for all beings. So we can also rejoice in what they are doing, what they have done in the past, and what they are doing in the present. So think about the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the wonderful work they are doing, and feel a sense of joy, rejoicing in that. And to conclude the meditation, in addition to rejoicing in the positive actions, the positive energy that we and others are creating, we can also dedicate this positive energy. So we have this traditional practice of dedicating merit or positive energy. And this is whenever we do something positive or hear about somebody else doing something positive, we can dedicate that positive energy, wishing that it will bring peace, happiness, well being, and spiritual advancement, being closer to enlightenment for ourselves, for others, for all beings, for the world. So you can just think, may all this positive energy that we've been thinking about and rejoicing in, may this be shared by all beings everywhere, all throughout the world. May it help all of them achieve happiness and ultimately enlightenment. So that's to give you an idea of how one could do a meditation on rejoicing. And if some of the parts of that meditation didn't make sense to you, for example, if you're not so familiar with the idea of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and not really sure there are such beings doing such things, then it's okay. You can leave them aside and just focus on the people and beings that you know of, you can accept, you can believe in, and the positive things they are doing, and focusing on those, then feel a sense of joy, rejoicing. And this is something you can be doing during the day. It's something you can bring into your daily life. So, for example, if you do see somebody doing something positive, if you really pay attention, you can often notice that. People giving food to hungry animals or giving money or other kinds of donations to homeless people, or even, like I say, just parents helping their children, taking care of their children, teachers taking care of the school children, and so forth. So there's so many examples of people helping each other, taking care of each other. So if we keep our eyes open and pay attention, we can see many of these happening during the day. Or people just being kind, bringing a cup of coffee to somebody who's wants a cup of coffee and so on. Bringing lunch to somebody who's hungry. So just acts of kindness like this, they're happening all the time around us. And it's good to pay attention to these. Don't just let them slip by, but pay attention to them and feel, oh, that's a really good thing. I'm glad they're doing that. Because it kind of brings this warm feeling into your heart, this good feeling into your heart. And when we do this, I think it also we ourselves feel inspired to do more positive things. Yeah, I don't know if that's your experience, but it's how I feel. When you see other people doing good things, you think, "Oh, that's a really nice thing to do. I want to do that too." Yeah. So it's nice to pay attention to those things, feel good about those things, and then hopefully that will also inspire you to do more of those things yourself. Any questions about this practice of joy, rejoicing?
I just wanted to share an experience from one school in California, Tara Redwood School, where the children are taught some of these ideas. The philosophy or the education is actually based on the same philosophy, but teaching it to a secular audience. And they use the concept of rejoice a lot with the children, and often in the afternoon they would sit together and then they would kind of comment on each other's acts throughout the day, acts of kindness, acts of helping, acts of being patient, and whatever wholesome act they were doing, and then they would like sing a song, or they would give a gift to each other, or they would, and sometimes they would have like a whole day of celebrating all the good things they had done, and then the green color is symbolizing rejoicing, so then they would put up lamps in green colors, and then they would have this whole party of rejoicing in all the good things they had done, and they got really excited about it, and it becomes this whole encouragement for
Yeah,
doing more of
doing
it.
more.
So
Yeah.
it's there's really a very very positive energy in it, even for young children.
Yeah, and that's easier than meditating on it. So to actually verbalize it, talk about it, do something active. Um, Also for adults, that might be more appropriate. Meditation can sometimes be a little hard. That's beautiful, and certainly, hopefully, will help them to not have jealousy. Because I think often in schools there's a lot of competitiveness, and that's the kind of thing that can lead to jealousy and envy and farther away from this spirit of rejoicing and feeling joyful.
And they talk about it. They talk about the opposite of rejoicing as, so they have jealousy, and then they have rejoicing as the antidote. So
Yeah.
and they can, I mean, they feel jealousy as well, of
Yeah,
course, often,
yeah,
but then
sure.
they can kind of, maybe they can talk about it, and they can try to
Yeah,
experiment with a different attitude.
yeah. Well, at least that they learn an alternative,
Mm.
a positive alternative to jealousy. My feeling is, and my experience is, that when you compare these different states of mind, jealousy on the one hand, rejoicing on the other hand, I mean, we experience both. And if you really look at those states of mind and what it feels like to have jealousy, what it feels like to have rejoicing, and it's so obvious, that rejoicing is much nicer. It feels good. And jealousy feels awful. So then you naturally want to have more of that one, the positive one. It just feels good. And I think the mind naturally gravitates towards feelings that do feel good, that sort of fulfill our wish for happiness and well being. But often, I think a lot of times people just don't know what to do. They just, jealousy comes up or anger comes up, and they just get totally overwhelmed by it. And and they don't know what to do. They don't know how not to get caught up in it. So for me, this is one of the wonderful things about the Buddhist teachings, the Buddhist path, that there are alternate ways of doing things, thinking, feeling. Yeah. So there are things we can do to not feel jealous, to not feel angry, and so on. So once we learn those, of course, you have to practice them. That's put them into practice. But if you do, you find it feels so much better. So that's probably what happens with these kids. I hope, hopefully, they just can see for themselves that something like rejoicing feels so much better. And also, your relationships with others will be better when you have joy, rejoicing rather than jealousy. And that feels good too when you're able to get along better with other people, with your fellow classmates.
I think this dualistic mind, when you have this dualistic mind, when people are your enemies, and I remember myself before I went to Buddhism or the spiritual path, and it was not very easy for me to. I got envy and jealous, because I felt like I was lacking something, and I didn't feel connected to other people. And now I find that it's very easy for me to rejoice and really genuinely rejoice. Um, and I think that maybe a part of it is that I feel connected. I feel that they are me, and in some sense. And also, I think it's a really good advice to have in mind, and to really feel how it feels to be jealous and to be envy, and to really recognize how it feels to rejoice.
Yeah, also sometimes with the negative states of mind, like jealousy and so on, they come up in us, but then we tend to feel very ashamed of ourselves, and we want to kind of hide it and pretend that we don't feel that way. And we might think that other people don't feel this way, only me. And then, put ourselves down, beat ourselves up, feel bad. And those kind of things don't help, So I find it's helpful to be able to talk about these states of mind, and then you find out, oh, other people feel them too, not only me. I'm not the only one, and that helps you to not feel so bad about it in yourself, and also feel like you don't have to hide it. You can let other people know that you feel that way, because they feel that way too. So there's no need to feel ashamed of it. And so
it goes a bit away as soon as you say it loud.
Yeah.
It kind of disappear a little bit.
Yeah. Not so strong, not so overwhelming. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry. It gets dark so early, and it's like, isn't it bedtime now? Well, I was planning to start the next section, the next immeasurable equanimity, but maybe we could have a break first, and then after the break we can start looking at that one. So how about if we have a 10-minute break? Some drinks and snacks upstairs.
Lots of snacks. Christmas snacks. just one.
Oh, okay.
Jeg kunne ikke hente den, Maria. Jeg tror måske, jeg ved ikke, din telefon gik ud hver gang, jeg prøvede i hvert fald, eller det der Google Play lukkede ned hver gang, jeg prøvede. Jeg kan lige prøve igen.
Okay, so we just have tonight and then 2 more weeks to go for this class. So I thought we could spend this last couple of weeks looking at the fourth of the 4 immeasurable thoughts, which is equanimity. Because this is quite a big one and an important one. I mean, they're all important, but this one is particularly important. So do any of you have any idea what is equanimity? What's the meaning of equanimity? Any guess?
Something about if you are in a situation, you won't be affected too much in the positive or negative way. You can stay like level-headed.
Yeah. Yeah, actually equanimity can mean different things. So that is one meaning. It's sort of calm and stable, balanced state of mind instead of up and down with, excitement and unhappiness, but being able to stay calm and balanced no matter what's happening. So that is one meaning, but here in the context of the 4 immeasurable thoughts, it has little different meaning than that. Because here it has to do with our relationships with others, the way we feel towards other people, other beings.
Well, it says that it's free from attachment and anger, that hold some close and others distant. So in terms of our relationship, it's the mind that relates to people without anger and attachment.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Yeah. That's more the meaning of equanimity in this context. But it's not, that's not wrong. But there are different meanings of equanimity. There's also an equanimity that comes into the practice of shamatha, calm abiding. When you're developing single-pointed concentration, there's a point where you have this state of equanimity, but that again has a little bit different context there.
But I guess you can say in a way that it's the mind that's not disturbed by
Yeah,
anger and attachment. So in that
up
sense,
and down.
It's the calm
Yeah.
mind that's.
Yeah, but here it's specifically in relation to people and not just events and situations, but other people, other beings, and so on. Completeness? What do you mean by that?
Abiding in completeness.
Abiding in completeness. I haven't really heard that explanation before. Completeness. I'll think about it. But yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it could be, but let me think about that. But here it's more to do, like I say, with the way we relate to other people, and it's actually quite different than the normal, ordinary way that we relate to other people. Isn't equanimity. So our normal. That is, those of us who haven't achieved equanimity have this tendency to put people into different groups or different categories. So the way it's explained traditionally is that there's 3 categories of people that we put them into. One is what's the term usually used is friends. So friends can also include family, relatives. It includes those people we like. And also not just people, but also can be animals, insects, different living beings. So there's some that we like. We feel positive towards. We feel good. We feel, I like that person. I like the way they are. I want to be with them. I want to take care of them. I want to help them, you know? So that kind of feeling. Attraction and liking. So that's the friend category. And then another category of people and beings is so-called enemies. That's a pretty strong word. But it mainly means people we don't like, people who have the opposite feeling. I don't like that person, and I don't want to spend time with them, and I don't want to be nice to them, and I don't want to help them. You know? So we have negative feelings. Dislike. The feeling we have towards those people is dislike rather than liking. And then there's a third category that's sometimes it's called strangers. But Pema Chodron uses another term, which I think is quite nice, neutrals, the neutral ones. And these are the people that we neither like nor dislike. So our feelings towards these people is more like neutral or indifferent or bland. Yeah. I don't know if bland has, you know what bland means? It's like when something doesn't have any taste. We say it's bland. Doesn't taste good, doesn't taste bad. It's just bland, blah. So there are certain people towards whom we have that kind of feeling. We don't really like them. We don't really dislike them. We just feel kind of an indifference, a neutral feeling. So those are the strangers or the neutrals, the neutral ones. So this is something, if we watch our mind, we will notice that our mind will switch back and forth in these different attitudes, different ways of feeling towards different people. And equanimity is the opposite of this. Equanimity is the state of mind in which we do not have this sort of biased or discriminating attitude of liking some, disliking others, having a kind of uncaring indifference to this third group of people. But instead we regard everybody equally, with equal care and equal concern. Now, it's actually quite a high achievement to be able to do that, you know, not to have people that you dislike and people that you're strongly attached to. So it's actually quite a hard thing to do. But it's said to be quite important, an important part of these four immeasurable thoughts. Because otherwise, if we work on developing love and we work on developing compassion and we work on developing joy, but if we lack equanimity, then what happens is, with loving kindness, for example, we think and we feel, oh, I want all people to be happy. I want all beings to be happy. May everyone be happy except XYZ. So it's like there's certain people that we exclude, that we leave out from our good wishes for them to be happy. And the same with compassion. You know, wishing all beings to be free of suffering. I wish everyone, all people, all beings everywhere to not suffer. May they be free of suffering. How wonderful if they could be free of suffering, except that person, you know. So there are people that we exclude from our compassion, from our wish to be free of suffering. So if that's happening, then that means our love and our compassion are not immeasurable, because the meaning of immeasurable is they extend to everyone, all people, all beings everywhere. But of course, that's a very hard thing to do. That's a very high achievement to be able to have immeasurable compassion. But from the point of view of the spiritual path in Buddhism, and it's probably true in other religious and spiritual traditions as well. If we leave out certain people or certain beings from our love and our compassion, then they're not fully perfect. They're not fully developed. And we won't be able to achieve the goals of the spiritual path. We won't be able to achieve enlightenment or nirvana or higher states of mind if we continue to hold certain people, certain beings out, cut them out from our love and compassion. So it does take time to develop perfect and immeasurable love and compassion, but it's something, I mean, it's good to work towards. It's good to aspire to have love and compassion to that degree, to that extent. So even it takes a long time, but it's good to work on. Also, we could consider that if we do not have universal love and compassion, if there are certain people that we don't want to love and we don't want to have compassion for, that means that we are not allowing our own mind to experience the full extent of what it can experience. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. What I'm trying to say is, let's say, I'm trying to work on developing love, loving kindness, having these good feelings towards everybody. But there's even just one person over there, and I feel, but not that one. I don't want to love that one. I can't love that one. That one is too hard. I don't like that person. So we're holding that person, or let's say I'm holding that person out of my love. So that's actually hindering myself. That's actually keeping myself down, not allowing myself, my mind, to experience what it can experience, the fulfillment of its highest potential. And also there's still some suffering there, because if I'm still holding on to bad feelings for that person, that means I'm having bad feelings in my mind, and bad feelings are painful for me. They may not be painful for that person. That person may not even know me or care about me, but they are painful for me. So I'm holding myself back, and I'm also in a situation of suffering by not letting myself at least try to develop love and compassion for that person. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So I don't know, for me, it's helpful to realize that, to see that, it's not just for the other person's sake, but also for my sake. It's good for me to be able to let go of these bad feelings and learn to love that person. Because if I can love that person, wow, then my love is really great, really fantastic. And that's good for me. May not make any difference to that person, but it's certainly helpful for me. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just thinking of Trump all the time. but I'm also thinking like, maybe it's more like the extreme, like, if you are like a wife and your husband always were violent against you, hitting you and all that, that's that you still have to have like, okay, you're still gonna love that person. I don't know if other people are maybe in jail and they get beat up and so on, and it's it must be difficult, to bring in, of course, Buddhism, but to love, someone that actually wants to kill. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, for sure. There are very difficult people out there.
Exactly.
And people that may have caused us tremendous pain and suffering and hurt and damage and so forth. So of course it's not easy. However, I still hold by what I say, because if we hold on to negative feelings towards those people and we don't allow ourselves to change, or we don't even try to change, then that actually is harmful for us.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that's yeah, I don't know. I just have to say that. But and you can always kind of, you know, leave the person or stay out of that environment and still okay. I'm not with those
Of
people,
course,
but
like,
still,
yeah.
but now I wish them the best and you know, try to love them and think of them, all of that. You know, if there might be, you know, bad people out or that I don't like them, but I, you know, to get my negative thoughts and feelings away, then you know, trying to stay positive.
Yeah, you don't have to stay with somebody who's
No,
harming
exactly.
you. If you have a chance to get away, if you can get away, for sure you can do that.
Yeah.
Protect yourself from harm from that person, and then work on the feelings. Try to generate forgiveness and positive feelings and so forth. But that's not always possible because, for example, in Tibet, a lot of people were put into prison and treated horribly, beaten and tortured, and sometimes for years and years and years. And they couldn't just get up and walk out. They were really trapped. And there's some really inspiring stories about. I'm sure there were some who got angry and couldn't put up with it. But there's also some stories about some of these people who were subject to this treatment, and they were still able to feel love and compassion for the people who were doing this to them. The Dalai Lama tells this story about one, I think he was a monk, and he had been in a prison, Chinese prison, for many, many years and treated horribly. Finally, he was released, and then he left Tibet and he came to India. When he went to India, he had a meeting with the Dalai Lama, and he was talking about his experiences in prison, and he said, yeah, there were a couple of times when I was really, really afraid. And the Dalai Lama thought, oh, afraid that he might lose his life or something like that. And so he said, so why were you afraid? What were you afraid of? And this man said, I was afraid of losing my compassion. So there were a couple of times when he was really trying to hang on to compassion for the people who were beating him and torturing him and so forth. And there were a couple of times when he felt, oh, I'm losing it. I'm losing my compassion. So that's what he was afraid of. Not losing his life, but losing his compassion. So that's, wow, that's really amazing.
I can understand if someone is evil to you once, that you maybe came over it for some time, but like even when somebody tortures you and even just it must be very, very hard to
Mind-boggling.
no.
But I think my guess is this person was a monk, and he'd probably been studying and practicing for many, many, many years. And he knew all the reasons why it's important to have love and compassion, and all the practices how to have love and compassion. So he was working on those. He was practicing those. And also he probably could see that if he did lose his compassion, he would slip into anger and hatred, and that would be so awful. So horrible. That doesn't help at all, to get angry. So my guess is that's where he was coming from. So he probably had to really work hard to have compassion, but most of the time he was successful, and incredible.
Yeah, there were actually one of the students in here who is a psychologist. She did her master's thesis on torture victims or imprisoned Tibetans. So those who had come out of prison, and she was going to Dharamsala and interviewing a lot of the refugees in the Tibetan in Dharamsala and Magdalgans. And one of the interest or curiosities was that it had been reported previously that there were actually quite a few cases of post-traumatic stress in the refugees compared to others who came out of a war-torn country or people who came out of prison, and very few with depression and anxiety.
So you're saying there were few cases of PTSD,
yeah,
compared to other
similar situations. And so one of her interests was to study why that might be.
Yeah.
So she was doing an interview with some of these prisoners,
Mm.
and it seemed to be the same reason that the way they were explaining their situation was much more they were much more aware of the pain or the suffering of the person torturing them, and what they the reason for why they were doing it, and what the karmic effect of it would be for them, and they had this, even the lay persons, just because they were brought up in a culture where compassion and love was much more present, they were educated in it, so then it helped them in that prison. So I think it's really what you're saying. It really makes sense that it's really, first of all, myself who is benefiting, who is able to cope with really difficult situations and really difficult people, if I can maintain this equanimity.
Mm. Yeah. So anyway, that's what equanimity is about. It's a state of mind that is able to look at others and feel a relatively even or balanced attitude towards others. One analogy that I find helpful is that of a doctor. Ideally, doctors are meant to treat whatever person comes to their office. They actually have an oath. There's an oath that they take, right? It's I forget the name, Hippocratic oath or something like that, that they take to be a doctor. So they actually have to make this promise that they will treat anybody and not discriminate on the basis of gender or race or religion or anything like that. So if a doctor is really following that promise, then anybody who comes to their office and is sick, they have to treat them. They have to treat them all equally. So I think that's a good example and analogy for the attitude of equanimity. And in particular, like in the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva's path, somebody who wants to follow this path, become a bodhisattva, and eventually become a Buddha, they must have this attitude. They must feel, I am working for the sake of all living beings, and not just for a limited number of living beings, the ones who are my friends, the ones I like, but all living beings. That's so much emphasized. All living beings without exception. So it's kind of built into the path right from the beginning. But just because we say that, I mean, we can say, it's so easy to sit on your meditation cushion or go to a prayer session and say, like we did, at the beginning of the class tonight, may all sentient beings have happiness, may all sentient beings be free from suffering. So it's easy to say those words and even to think them, but to actually do it, to actually have it in our heart is not easy. We do have to work on it, but we can work on it. There are ways, there are methods we can do to work on generating equanimity. And so I think it's good to at least try to see that equanimity, this attitude of equanimity, is a good thing and a kind of ideal to work towards. And even if at this point in time there might be certain individuals that you feel, oh, that one is too difficult, like Trump, or Hitler, or Mao Zedong, they're most probably, for all of us, there are ones that we find really, really hard. But at least if we can feel, right now, I am not able to feel love and compassion for that person, but one day I would like to. One day I would like to be able to let go of my anger, my bad feelings, and be able to, feel these positive feelings even for that person. So even to have that state of mind is already something positive. Yeah. To wish to generate forgiveness, to wish to be able to generate positive feelings for those people. Because not, there are people who say, never, I will never forgive that person. I will always hate that person. They want to feel that way. They want to hang on to their anger and their hatred. So, so if you feel like that, then it's very hard to develop equanimity. So if you can at least get beyond that and feel, I know it's hard, but one day I would like to, I do want to, I do wish to let go of my bad feelings and be able to feel positive towards that person. Does that make sense? So at least you're giving yourself a direction to go in. Okay, so like I say, over the next couple of weeks, we will be looking at this attitude. I just wanted to introduce it tonight. And I thought that between now and the next class, as a kind of homework assignment, you could just start by looking at your mind and looking at the attitudes you have towards different people, both the people you actually know, you meet, you work with, you live with, and also more public figures, because we also hear about people in the news and stories and so forth. So with these various people that you come in contact with, either directly or indirectly, just try to pay attention to your mind, to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your attitudes, and be honest. It's very important to be honest and not just pretend, oh, I'm a good Buddhist and I like everybody. That's not going to work. So it's important to be honest. And if there are negative feelings, if there are people that we close our mind, close our heart to, and feel negative towards, it's important to be honest about that. So just watch your mind, watch your thoughts, your feelings, your attitudes, and try to notice these three different attitudes that come up. The liking, my friends, my family, these are the ones I really like. And then the disliking, oh, no, not that one. Close off to that one. And negative feelings, negative thoughts. And then everybody else. My thought, my feeling is that the biggest group of people is the third one. Yeah, the neutrals, the strangers, the ones we just don't really have much feeling for one way or the other. I think this is just my experience anyway. The number of people I like is relatively small. The number of people I don't like is relatively small. But then there's this huge number, because this also includes everybody around the world, all the people we don't even know, people we've never met. They have to be in that group. So that's a pretty big group of people. But still, it's good to just try to notice, be aware of your mind, be aware of your thoughts and feelings towards that group. And also, one interesting thing that you might notice is that these groups are not fixed. But, people move in and out of these different groups. One person, one day they may be on the friend side, and the next day they're over on the enemy side. And they might even sometimes be in the neutral one, you just don't feel anything for that person at certain moments. So that's interesting to notice that these groups are impermanent and subject to change. And so just try to be aware of that, and you might even want to make a list. Get a notebook, a piece of paper, something, and then
all the people we don't like.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but just write down some of the people who are your friends. You really, really like them, and then some people who are enemies. You really have a hard time with them. You don't like them at all.
It will be embarrassing to come next time.
No. I'm not gonna look at it. You don't have to hand it in. It's not. It's not that kind of assignment, but just for your own sake, because we're going to be doing meditations on how to work on balancing out our feelings towards these different people. So it's good to use specific examples, to have specific examples that you can work with, rather than just vague, uh, amorphous people and beings.
If you're running out of subjects, try making you one of the neutrals.
Yeah, yeah, that would be nice.
So let's just do a little bit of meditation now. We can start working on this just for the last 10 minutes of the class. So make yourself comfortable. So let's start by thinking of a friend, someone in that group. So there's probably quite a few people we would place in that group, people we like. Again, it doesn't have to be just friends, but also family members. Could be your parents, your siblings, your partner, your children or child. The people we really love and really care about and really hold dear to us. So maybe just think of one person from that category. Bring one person to mind. And imagine that person sitting in front of you, but a little bit to the left of the center. And just spend a few moments looking at that person, thinking about that person, letting the feelings you have for that person arise in your mind, in your heart. The good feelings, the positive feelings. And then bring to mind a person you don't like. An example of a so-called enemy, someone towards whom you have negative feelings, you don't really like the person, you don't want to spend time with the person, you probably disapprove of things about the person, the things they do and say and so forth. Find one person like that and imagine that person in front of you, but on the right side. And just let your feelings for this person come up. Don't try to deny them or block them. So just be honest with what really happens in your mind towards this person, kind of thoughts and feelings you have. And thirdly, bring to mind a person of the third category, the strangers or neutrals. So, one way to do this would be to imagine yourself in a busy place, like a train station or a shopping mall. Around you, you don't even know. They're total strangers. So, just pick one of those people out of the crowd and put them there in front of you. Put them in the middle between the other two. Just a total stranger. And just look at how your mind feels towards this person. So now just ask yourself if this is a good way to be. If you like being this way, if you like having such different feelings towards different people, including some feelings which are actually quite painful, negative. Do you like being this way? Do you want to continue being this way? Or could you see the desirability of possibly changing the state of mind so that your feelings towards these people and other people are more balanced, more even? And actually, equanimity is said to be like leveling a piece of ground before building on it. If you want to build a house or a building, first you need to make the ground, the land, even and flat. Otherwise, the building or the house will be crooked and probably won't last very long. So, in a similar way, we on the spiritual path are trying to develop love, compassion, and the wish to help all living beings, the wish to become a Buddha, to help all living beings. And for these states of mind to be correct and skillful, they need to be built on a balanced, even state of mind, the state of mind of equanimity. So equanimity is said to be like making our mind even and balanced so that then we can cultivate other qualities like love and compassion tended towards all beings and not just a limited number of beings. So just see if that makes sense to you and if that is something you would like to work on and work towards. Okay, so now we'll bring this meditation to a close and also the evening to a close by making a dedication of the positive energy we generated. So we came together, did some meditation and some discussion on these states of mind, joy and equanimity, which are very positive states of mind. And developing them is good for us. It's also good for others in the world. So we've been things here, creating some good energy, merit. And so now we can share this merit with others, wishing that it will bring more peace and happiness, less suffering, and eventually enlightenment for all living beings. So there are some dedication prayers in this little pamphlet if anyone would like to recite them. They're on page 3 and 4. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the two subduers more away, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long.